Hello, and welcome to the podcast, An Intelligent Look at Terrorism. I'm your host, Phil Gurski, President and CEO of Borealis Threat and Risk Consulting in Ottawa, Canada. And I'm very pleased to have with me on as a guest today, Nancy Yammout, who is joining me from Beirut, Lebanon. And if you've been following the news in Lebanon these days, there have been a number of issues with electricity and the economy, but she has made time to talk to me, and I'm very thrilled. So Nancy has a very interesting background. She is a forensic social worker, and together with her sister Maya, she has interviewed and rehabilitated extremists in the Roumieh Prison in Beirut. And I thought I would have a conversation with Nancy to talk about extremist rehabilitation, what is entailed in it, how you can measure it, how you can be sure that you're actually getting through. So Nancy, thank you very much for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you, Phil, for making this time for me from Beirut.
So let's get right up from the top. You have created an organization called rqme. Can you tell my listeners a little bit about what this organization is, how long you've been around, and what's the whole purpose of it?
We started in 2011 officially, but to create an NGO that deals with crime prevention, we have a lot of Lebanon has suffered since the 2000 from extremists. And we had a lot of assassinations and bombs going on. So we had to create an NGO that is really specified and specialized in crimes. So my sister and I have established a rqme in 2011, but since 2011 until 2013, we were conducting research in Roumieh Prison. We have interviewed violent criminals, but we were specialized with extremists. It took us some time to get information and do the rehabilitation. Afterwards, after 2013, we have started to do projects that's related to crime prevention and doing counter-violence extremism and prevention from violent extremism in high-risk communities.
So as you mentioned, and I mentioned, I was in Beirut a couple of years ago. Roumieh Prison was not one of the things on my tour for obvious reasons. Can you explain a little bit about what Roumieh Prison is all about in terms of the conditions? And you mentioned that it took you a couple of years to kind of get information. What kind of challenge was it for you and your sister to go into a Lebanese prison and get the cooperation of some of the inmates?
Okay. First of all, Roumieh Prison is far from Beirut, around 81 kilometers. So the moment you reach to Roumieh Prison, it's kind on a mountain, so you need to drive up there. Then the moment you reach, it's a five buildings in it's like a Pentagon style. Without saying the Pentagon, United States.
You don't want to go there, Nancy. You don't want to go there.
No. So one of those buildings is called the Building B, and it's known for just inmates who have committed extremism. It's a building that contains 3 floors. Each floor, there's around 200 to 300 inmates. The condition of the prison is really hard because the building was designed to host, each floor was supposed to host around 50 to 100 inmates. But imagine now they have 300 in each floor. So it's really crowded.
Wow.
And yeah, it's really crowded. And you have people who are condemned in extremism, and you have people who are accused in extremism. So you have people who are still under the process of being in trial. So they didn't have their condemnation yet, or they didn't have their verdict yet. Mm-hmm. So the thing is, this is where we wanted to go inside, and we wanted to know more. The challenges really were that our request for the research was rejected 3 times until we did an official letter, and we wanted to see the Brigadier Ashraf Rifi. Back then, he's the head of the internal security forces. Back then, we had an appointment, and we explained to him our cause. We told him if we don't start doing prevention and knowing those people, we are not able to do the right prevention for Lebanon. So we got the approval. So this was the first challenge. The second challenge was going inside prison and talking to the internal security forces of Lebanon inside the prison itself. So the first one, they didn't accept us as women doing such a job. They dictated us. Why interviewing such inmates? You go to the juvenile section, go to the kids section, go to the women's section. Why you need to go to interview such people? Some of them told us, just fake all your research. You don't need to go inside. So my reaction was, "Said, you see this face?" He said, "Yes, you're gonna see it a lot."
So you had challenges in just trying to convince the authorities that you were qualified and needed to do this research by having one-to-one conversations with inmates, like you said, some of whom are still awaiting trial, some have been convicted. What was the reception you got from the actual inmates once you got access to them?
Okay, that was really even harder, because it took us 2 years to establish a good bond. It took us 2 years just to interview 20 people. We were, first of all, we went inside wearing hijab. I don't want to talk about my religion, but I have to, since my religion made things much easier for me. My dad is a Muslim Sunni, and my mom is a Christian Orthodox, and it made me think in a different way. Made me think in a different way and how to approach those people. Plus, I was raised in Saudi Arabia, so I studied religion enough to understand how they are thinking. Yes, I was raised in Saudi Arabia until the age of 18.
So you are the product of a Christian Orthodox and a Sunni Muslim, which I think is very common in your country, if memory serves me correct. And you also were raised in Saudi Arabia at the age of 18, which leads me to think that you would have a very good understanding of religion, and in Saudi, a very conservative interpretation of religion, which is sometimes called Wahhabism, and how sometimes, on some occasions, a very conservative view can lead to an extremist view, and in the worst case scenario, into a violent extremist view. So that obviously helped you in understanding the mentality and the ideology of some of the people that you were talking to in the prison.
That's correct. The thing is, I want to comment on, I studied Wahhabism for 3 years inside Saudi Arabia. But what's happening, what Al-Qaeda is using and what ISIS is using is not Wahhabism at all. It's something different. Because I studied religion, so I can see the difference, and I can see they are using some of Wahhabism in their practices, but it's not all of it Wahhabism.
No, I agree with you completely.
Yeah. So let me go further. So if I want to talk about the challenges inside Roumieh Prison, it was, we have met someone. He told us, "Why you're coming here?" By the way, let me repeat this. Sorry. When the moment we came inside, we were wearing hijab, and they were asking about my family name, and my family name is known to be a Muslim Sunni, because they didn't want to talk to anyone who is a Muslim Shiite.
Of course, in Lebanon, that's a very big difference between the Shia and the Sunni in Lebanon.
Unfortunately, if you go to both, we have only political differences, but we have the same practices. Same practices. But nowadays, the Shiites and Sunnis trying to differentiate the practices nowadays. But if you want to go to the core of it, it's the same principles. So the thing is, they know that my family name is Yammout. Yammout no, is known to be a Sunni. So this thing made much easier for us to enter and talk to extremists. Then the other thing is we went inside wearing hijab, also made things much easier. We didn't provoke them wearing something tight or being provocative in the way we are dressed up, just simple, kind of formal and wearing hijab. The thing is, my sister met the first extremist by she stopped someone in prison and told him, "Hi, I want to talk to someone, a prisoner here. Can you help me?" And he said, "Whom you're looking for?" I said, she told him, "Look, I'm doing a research, and I want to learn more about why there's postponing of trials. We are in Lebanon. There's postponing of trials too much. It can take to up to 8 years postponing of trials, unfortunately.
8 years?
So even more, even 15 years.
That's a problem.
That's a huge problem, believe me. And if they are known to be an extremist, even they start postponing their trials even more, like it's a kind of psychological exhaustion and mental torture. The thing is, he said, "Look," and she told him, "I want to interview who are accused in extremism." He said, "I'm not an extremist. I'm more than that." She said, "You're what exactly?" He said, "I'm from Al Qaeda." He distinguished himself from the other extremists. I didn't know why back then. Then we sat with him. So Maya started interviewing him, but she told me, "Nancy, talk to this prisoner. He wanted to know more about religion, and he wanted to talk to someone who was more into that area." So I started talking with that person for a while. By the way, the approach that we are conducting, my sister and I and the rest of the NGO, we don't use religion, we don't use politics, but we have the knowledge and we know how to use it. But the thing is, what we're doing is we're talking in a humanitarian way. We're talking about their lives, the way they were raised, how did they join such groups, what did they work, what do they love, what do they hate. So that way, the approach that we have used is the humanitarian way, made extremists talk to us freely, because we're not criticizing the religion, we're not criticizing what they're thinking of in what comes to religion or politics. We're like telling them, we understand what you're thinking, but we need to talk about something different. So this is how it began. So one prisoner led to another, but it wasn't easy, because a prisoner accused us of being, "Oh, you're from the police, but you're disguised by a civilian. You're from the intelligence. Or you're a journalist and you want to collect information and give it back to the police." So we had a lot of accusation from prisoners, but it took us a lot of time for them to understand that we are social workers, that we do few things differently, and it started from there. And after 2 years, things got much easier.
So you were able to get some cooperation from these inmates. If you could tell us, I have two questions for you. How many people you've successfully had talks with, either interviews or conversations with? And secondly, and this is maybe an unfair question to ask, but what have you learned about general patterns as to why the people with whom you spoke adopted violent extremism ideology? Was there anything that stood out for you and your sister that you saw more often in terms of, backgrounds or influences or behaviors that you could say, I'm not going to use the word profile because I don't like that word, but were there patterns that you and your sister noticed over the time you interviewed people?
Okay, you want to start with the patterns? Let us start with the patterns. Okay, usually when we started interviewing them, sorry, let me put this in a chronological order. We have interviewed more than 100 inmates who are accused and condemned in extremism between males and females. So we interviewed both. What we have realized is they have problem with it's a family problem. The father, either he's absent, or he's not being a role model, or he passed away, or he's working abroad, or he's violent. Like most of those extremists, males and females, their fathers were violent.
Violent or violent extremist?
Violent, no, violent. They like, for instance, the father comes home, and if you didn't have good grades, you're beaten up.
Okay.
But he will give you the best laptop. He will give you the best mobile. He will give you the best car. He put you in the best reputable schools. But the communication and love and the hugs stops from the age of 7. I don't know why.
Okay.
So when you ask the extremist, males or females, when was the better conversation, or you had a better bond with your father? Most of them, they say we had a better bond at the age of 23, 24, even 25. This is how the bond that you need to acquire with your father should be at the age of 3,
right?
Even before that. This is what we have found. And another thing we have found is the mother, when the father is being violent, the mother is not defending.
Okay.
The mother is not protecting. The mother is not standing up and stopping the abuse, the physical abuse, or the mental abuse, or the verbal abuse, or even the neglect. So the abuse is always there. So if I want to go further in the pattern when it comes to psychology, we have adopted the model of Dr. Raymond Hamden. He's Lebanese American. Actually, he's American Lebanese because he was born in the United States. So, and his Arabic is terrible. But anyway, he's a forensic clinical psychologist. So we adopted his model, which he categorized the types of extremism into 4. The first type is psychopath, but underneath the psychopath come the narcissistic, bipolar, borderline, you name it. Then you have the second type is ethnogeographic political. It means this person is driven by politics. Then you have a person who's ethnogeographic religious. It means he's driven by religion. Then you have the last type, which is retributional, like what's happening in Syria. For instance, a Syrian persona has a family, was killed by the Syrian regime. He goes and join Nusra or join ISIS because he wants to kill the Assadi regime. So he has he joins this group for him to do his revenge. So we have those 4, and we have met those 4 types inside prison.
Did you notice any pattern in terms of how many people or what percentage were in each of those 4 categories? In other words, was there one dominant category out of those 4?
Yes, there's actually there was 2 categories. It depends. Let me tell you why. And it depends on the nationality. You see, if you want to go through the building, we have 55% or 50% are Syrians. So everybody who's against the Assadi regime is accused of terrorism, and he's considered the retributional type.
Okay.
So this is okay. Then you have around 20% Palestinians, and the rest is between Lebanese and other nationalities.
Okay.
So the numbers of Lebanese are really low, but we have higher numbers when it comes to Syrians and Palestinians. And what comes to patterns, it comes to the percentages, you can find the ethnogeographic political and ethnogeographic religious are higher between Palestinians and Lebanese, while retribution, the ones who have revenge, are more towards the Syrians, but not all the 50%. Like you can say out of the 50, you can say 30%.
Okay.
And the other 20%, it's between ethnogeographic, political, or religious.
Okay, so you did see, that's interesting. You mentioned that you did talk to somebody who clearly said, what are you doing here? I'm Al-Qaeda, leave me alone. Did you have anyone who openly admitted to being Daesh, to being Islamic State?
Yes, I have met someone who, and we rehabilitated him. He's from Daesh, and he put a bomb belt,
Yep.
sorry, on his. He was carrying it. He didn't wear it yet, so he was caught up by the Lebanese government because he wanted to go to cross to Syria and do jihad and bomb himself there. The thing is, when we spoke to him, he's from the pattern who's we call ethnogeographic religious. He's a religious persona. And amazingly, he draws beautiful murals on the walls.
So he's an artist, in other words.
He's amazing. Now let me tell you what happened. So when we started doing rehab, we used art therapy with him.
Oh, okay.
And he started to acknowledge what's happening. And at the end of our sessions, the end session, how I can remember, I told him, if you have the chance to write a letter for your younger self, what you're gonna write. So he wrote at the age of 17. He wished that somebody was there, somebody was supporting him. Though, let me tell you something. His father he has doctorate in Arabic literature, and his mom has a doctorate in French literature, and she teaches in the Sorbonne in France.
That's pretty important.
So, yes. I want to indicate not all factors related to poverty.
Right.
Factors are related also from the family. Internal and external factors really play a role. Internal factors meaning your family, how they are supporting you. External factors, which groups you are blending in. Are you blending with gangs, mafias, right, or Red Cross or Scouts? So or the church, whatever it is.
No,
continue back to this. Yeah, sorry.
No, I was going to say, I mean, that's like, I've been arguing this for 25 years now, that people seem to think that somebody can get to this point completely on their own. It's the so-called self-radicalization, which is a complete myth as far as I'm concerned. It's all about the people you hang around with. It's your family, it's your friends, it's your students, it's the people you're at school with, the people you're at work with, the people that you chat with online. It's a very complicated picture. So, sorry, go ahead with the story. This is a fascinating story.
So the thing is, after 2 years and a half staying in Roumieh Prison, he was rejecting to see the pictures of his children. So we bought the pictures. We're trying to generate emotions. We started to let him have a bond back with his wife and his family back again. And he started to feel more secured. And he said, I told him, every time you feel something negative or something, just put it on the wall, just draw it, just express it. He said, the moment I want to go outside prison, what shall I work? Because my criminal record would be, there's gonna be, there's a sentence gonna be, say, I'm a ex-terrorist. He said, ex-terrorist. I told him, just work for your own and start drawing murals. Just go to places and just say, I can draw murals on the wall. And amazingly, after 5 years, we sat with him for 1 year, but he was in prison around 2 years to 3 years and a half, something like this. So the moment he went outside, he contacted us, and he started telling us that he started drawing murals for restaurants. He started drawing murals for specific apartments. So he started working in that area. So we were really happy that he found his passion, and at the same time he didn't go back to those extremists. He didn't mingle back again, but he started growing his relationship with his daughter and his son and his wife. So for us, this is really a
success story.
A success story. But let me tell you something. After a year from being outside and working, he went back to prison, but not as an extremist. He has another trial. He said, "Look, I don't want to run away from from the police. I want to finish everything and go back to my family. So I guess he needs another more year, so it will be complete 5 years in prison. But he's not in the block B, he's in the block W, which is a different block, okay. Because it's a different accusation. And he should be out in a few months from now. He wants to go back to his family and he's happy. He goes to the mosque, he does his fasting, he's fine. He does everything that he's doing as a Muslim. And he's continuing his life as a normal person. He doesn't need to go and kill anyone.
Not surprisingly, Nancy, you know my background. I worked in security intelligence, so I worked for the Canadian equivalent of what the Lebanese services that you dealt with. So I am normally rather skeptical when it comes to rehabilitation and this term de-radicalization, which I really don't like. So I want you to convince me, as somebody who used to work in this line, but as a security intelligence guy, very hard in my thoughts, I want you to convince me that it's possible to convince these people to abandon their ideologies, and more importantly, given the work that you're doing, how is it possible to prevent it from happening in the first place?
Okay, let me tell you, I'm a social worker, not a miracle worker. Yeah, let me really be blunt. And you cannot save everyone. Okay, you can rehab. Okay, when you do rehabilitation, you do your part and the other person needs to do their part.
So you've had cases that have failed completely then?
So some people didn't want to approach and talk to us from the first place. Okay, so the people who were skeptical, they started negotiating with us. They wanted to know more. And those people, they have questions. And the more they're having questions, the more I guess there's some guilt inside of their heads. And there's other type of extremists inside the building who didn't want to contact to us, and we are accused of being atheists and infidels. And you can I have a list of names inside. I don't want to talk about them, but some of them are not really nice. But we got used to it, but we're fine with it. What comes to rehab, it's like addiction. Some people can be saved, others can't. But you need to convince the persona who is in front of you that he needs to be part of it. So what I do is, we have, like any treatment, what they want to change. If they want, they will come to us. They want to change something. They want to erase a certain guilt. They want to change. If they're asking for that, it means they want to really work it. But also you need to be also skeptical again. Maybe he's saying that so he can get out soon from prison,
or better conditions, or more favors, or whatever.
Exactly. But we've been there for 10 years, and those people who are with us, we have around, like you can say, 40 people that can come and go back, but we spoke to over 100. Okay. So those 40 who come back and forth, they have many questions, and they were doing follow-up, and most of them, they have changed. The moment they come out of prison, this is where you know if your rehabilitation is working or not. So out of those we have rehab, we had, like, I didn't count them correctly. We had 3 or 4 out of 20 who went back. Okay. But they went back. The Qaeda guy went back. The Qaeda guy, he needed a mental institution because he's a person who hears voices in his head. So he needed a medical attention.
That's different.
Okay. Yeah. That's different. The other 3, they didn't have any medical attention, but they were rejected in a very abusive way from their family. Those people said, if we don't have family to host us, we don't have families to support us, I'm going, how can I eat? How can I be blended in back? And some of them, they said, I have no family. I have nobody's waiting for me. So, and I like the action. And some of them, they go back to Nusra or ISIS or Al-Qaeda. It depends on what they want to do. And others, no, they want to change. And sometimes we get them jobs, and sometimes we blend them with universities. One of them has wants to become a social worker, but he didn't sign yet, but he's gonna sign up soon. So another person who was he's a mine action expert in the government. He's an ex persona also. He was dragged to this. Now he's working as a driver in one of the NGOs. We have a lot of success stories, but we have also people who still wants to join. And as I was saying, you do your part and they need to do their part for rehab. There's no magical rehab.
Which makes sense to me. What about on the prevent side? Do you do any actual prevent work that tries to get the people before these make decisions? And what have you found from your work in that area?
So how we do prevention? The best people to tell you how they get recruited is the prisoners themselves. So we started in Beirut, and we started somehow in Tripoli. So we started to prevention. We started to do awareness with youth at risk. And especially who has they have concealed records. It means they have no ID. They were born without IDs. Those people, and those young people, are easier than other teenagers to be recruited, because ISIS will come. You see, ISIS, they give you passports. You know that?
Yes.
They have passports.
Yeah.
They will give you passport, they will give you leadership, and they will give you money. So you have emotional stability, and you have financial stability, and you have leadership skills.
Right.
Any teenager will never, will be really tempting for them. So doing, the thing is, what we told them, the teenagers, he said, okay, before they said, the sheikh is a person we can trust. I told him, before trusting any sheikh, why don't you do your homework? They said, what homework? He said, why don't you investigate the sheikh? Who is he? Mm-hmm. Is he from Dar al-Fatwa? Is he authorized? Is he legal? Was he a drug addict before? They don't investigate whom they're following. So the first thing is putting the doubt. Learning them, if you want to follow a certain group, you need just to ask about that group. That's simple. If you want to go to a certain scouts, ask about their program, ask about who they are. So we started to do that. So not everybody is coming to you in a nice way, talk to you in a nice way, sweet talking you all the way. Just make sure that those people you can trust. So we started from there. Then we started telling, who's your hero? Because they have problems with their fathers as well, and their mothers. So we tried to make their fathers and their mother their heroes, and they need to understand so they can break the cycle of crime. For instance, they need to understand that their fathers and their mother, they were raised in this way. They don't need to give that back to their children, but they need to understand the situation. And we, after a month and a half, we talk about extremism as it is. But you need, first of all, to establish bond with the youth. Then we talk about extremism as it is, for them not to join.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense to me. You do want to establish a relationship before you get into the most difficult questions. So is there anything else you want my listeners to understand about the work that you and your sister have done in Lebanon? By the way, I will be including a link to your website so they can find out more from you. But are there things if there's 3 things you want people to know about what you've been able to do and what you've learned from these interviews and this mentoring process, if I can call it that, what would those 3 things be?
Well, we're able to train a lot of people who don't have to have a psychology or social background. We can train them for them to do better programs in their community. Another thing is people really change. I don't know. I know you maybe in not a big percentages, but they can change, and please give chance for those people to change. That's it.
That's a wonderful message. And like I say, even for an old intelligence guy like me, I too have met some people in Canada that I'll never say 100% guarantee that they have abandoned all of the ideology, but they certainly have shown me that they appear to be sincere in rejecting what they used to belong to. So I just want to thank you, Nancy, first of all, for joining me on the podcast. And second of all, for the work that you and your sister do. It sounds like amazing work. I can understand the challenges as two females in Lebanon would have doing this. But congratulations to the two of you for undertaking this venture.
Thank you very much, Roger. I want to indicate something. My sister and we started it, but we are 23 people who are working in that area. So we grew up to become 23 people who have the same cause, and they want to change, because we still see that people are able to change to become a better citizens, and they can produce something beautiful in their lives.
That's a wonderful.
Thank you for hosting me.
Well, that's a wonderful story. So I will post a link to your site so people can contact you. So good luck in the future with your work.
Thank you very much, Phil.
So that was my conversation with Nancy Yammout from rqme in Lebanon. What do you think? Have you been involved in similar programs in your country, either here in Canada or other places in the world? Drop me a line. You can reach me on email, borealisrisk@gmail.com, or on Twitter @BorealisSaves. You'll also find me on LinkedIn and on Facebook. If you want to subscribe to material such as this, interviews like with Nancy, please go to my website, www.borealisthreatandrisk.com. Hit the subscribe button, give me your email. You'll get a free daily digest every morning, podcasts, blogs, interviews, etc., etc. I'd love to hear your feedback on this interview and others, as well as ideas for future podcasts. I'll talk to you again soon. Until then, stay safe.